And I'm very pleased to have Mrs. Lana Smith with me, the Premier's wife, and the Director of our Financial Services Commission Hong Kong office, also a consultant. And she's just back from Hong Kong. Welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you.
Yes, this is your first time on Spotlight, right?
Well, except for a fundraiser
Yes.
we did for Rotary
Rotary, yes.
during the Haiti disaster.
That's right. We had a good time raising that money too. Raised a lot of money.
We did. Oh my goodness, it was fun.
Yeah, a good time. You're heading the Hong Kong office.
Yes, and I need to make it clear that I'm not representing the Financial Services Commission.
Okay.
I am establishing, I'm the interim director of the Hong Kong office because the commission is an independent body, as you know. And it was interesting, I was in the, do you call it a green room or?
Well, it's just
You
the
know what
waiting
I mean?
area, yes.
The waiting area,
Yeah.
but they call it the green room. Yeah. I was sitting there and I heard that Mr. Mathavius, who is the head of the Financial Services Commission, will be the speaker on Friday night this week.
Friday night this week.
So I said to myself, this is the perfect introduction
absolutely
to this event because the commission will have a role or has a very vital role to play in the establishment of the office, and they are going to be there in full force, if you want to call it that, I hope by the end of September or early October. But Cromwell, also give me a chance. What should I call you?
You could call me anything you want. Eduenka.
Eduenka.
Yeah, if you're going to call me Eduenka, call me Eduenka. And if you're going to call me Cromwell, call me Cromwell. Don't call me Edu.
You don't mind if I call you Cromwell?
I don't mind if you call me Cromwell.
Okay. Cromwell, I wanted to express, and thank you for that. I wanted to say how sorry I am about your mother's passing.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry I missed the funeral, of course. And she was a bright spark when I knew her in the immigration department. I'm sure you all miss her very sorely.
Yes. So, she was an extraordinary woman.
She was an extraordinary person. Remember that Latin accent?
Yeah.
She was from the Dominican Republic?
No, she was actually from East End, but she spent 14 years.
Oh, 14 years. That's
in the
why
Dominican
she
Republic.
had that.
Yeah, she could read, write, and speak Spanish
she
fluently.
had the accent.
Yeah.
So I always thought she was born there.
No, she went to school there.
Okay.
So she spent a considerable portion
of her life
there.
Yes, well, she got a lot of that culture.
Yeah.
I could see her now. Anyway, I just thought I would say that.
But thank you very much for those kind words. Yes. So tell us about the Hong Kong office. Why have we opened up a Hong Kong office?
Why no? That's a very good question. Because we have been going to Hong Kong since the 80s. When I say we, the government, and it's important for me to sort of set the scene. I first went to Hong Kong in 1989, accompanying the then Chief Minister, Premier, Honorable Lavity Stout of blessed memory. And I was with Mr. Robert Mathavius also, and that is a story in itself. But that was our first introduction to Hong Kong. And of course, other persons, Dancia Penn was there, and Beverly Hodge. A number of us went to Hong Kong at that time. We had recently passed the International Business Companies Act, and there was a lot of appetite for BVI companies, and there still continues to be that. Since that time, we've been doing a number of road events. Remember, I used to be the director in fact, I was the first director of the International Finance Center. And we did a number of events, not just in Hong Kong, but in the greater Asia Pacific region. Because, as I said, there is such an appetite for BVI companies. In fact, since I've been there, I've been to mainland China, Beijing. And I remember going to a China Offshore Summit, and all of our competitors were there, and everybody, it was all about the British Virgin Islands. 40% of our business, I believe it's more, but officially 40% of BVI financial services come from that Asia Pacific region. And sorry, and of course, you know, and we all know that 60 cents out of every dollar that the government spends is from financial services, from the financial services sector. Asia, why now? Asia is where it's happening, as you know. Asia, there continues to be that appetite, as I've said before, for business from the British Virgin Islands, for international business, for business companies, I should say, business companies. Our competitors are there. We have close to 100 licensed trust companies, entities here in the BVI, and they are virtually mirrored in Hong Kong. I don't know how many people realize that. I mean, you have Mossack Fonseca here, they're there.
So whatever you have here, you have
yes,
there.
Precisely. So it
So
is
we need
important
to be there.
To raise our profile, to interface with the government authorities. For example, on recently before I left, I had a meeting with the Treasury Department. In fact, a senior person in the Treasury, the Deputy Commissioner, to talk about our financial services, to talk about issues that we are having while we're there. And we are there to support the industry. We're not a revenue, we're not there to make any money. We're not a revenue making any, it's not a revenue earning.
Well, certainly we strengthen our market.
Precisely.
And we're trying to increase our market share.
Increasing, that's critical. That's very critical. You put your finger right on it. It's to increase our market share. Yes, at the moment, there are 450,000 active business companies on the BVI register. In fact, there are over 1 million, but 450,000 on the register. But we have to, as you put it so succinctly, we have to make sure that we increase our market share, not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of substance, in terms of adding value to what we do at the moment. And so we are supporting the industry that is there. And although we talk about Hong Kong and that is the headquarters, we are in fact reaching out to the Asia Pacific region. You know what's happening?
Generally,
yes.
Generally.
Mainland
Asia,
China is where it's
Singapore,
happening.
Singapore, Philippines, the whole region.
Exactly. And it's going. I've been there since May.
What kind of specific support are we providing in that office? What are some of the things, activities that's going on there?
It's going to be a modest office. It's going to be initially 3 persons from the general office. I should also mention that we are interested in, or we will be promoting tourism and investment. I don't know whether or how many people know. I think you know, but I don't know how many people know, for example, that Little Dix Bay is owned by the Cheng family, which owns New World Development, which is one of the largest hotel developers in the Asia Pacific region. So it's about investment promotion as well as financial services. And since I have been there, I have, for example, met with the Cheng family to talk about further development in terms of Little Dix Bay. Mr. Raymond Hung of Beef Island is also in Hong Kong. And we want to see more of that kind of investment. So the office, as I said, is going to be modest, small, 3 persons. We've already acquired, or I should say acquired, it's a person. We've already entered into a contract with a Chinese person, a person from Hong Kong, who would be the chief operations officer. And then we will have one other officer who would service the general office. And then the commission will come in. It's going to be the Registry of Corporate Affairs. They would have a role to play. And I don't want to say too much about them because I think at some point they're going to come and speak about what they're going to do. But it's a joint office, general, as well as the Financial Services Commission.
So we selling financial services and we selling tourism.
And tourism, indeed. In fact, as again, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. The people who are traveling the most now are from China.
Well, you know, I've been saying for some time now, or perhaps a year, that we've read in the I think it's the World Travel and Tourism Council.
That's right, yes.
Where they put out some data that says that in the next 6 years, by perhaps it's now 2018, I think, that we would have about 100 million Chinese
Yes.
coming out of China as tourists.
Yes, I've seen that. I've seen that piece.
And Jamaica, over the last year or so, has gotten a Chinese ambassador that whose goal is to help establish direct flights from China to Jamaica. And I'm seeing that as a great opportunity for the Virgin Islands regarding having those tourists come to Jamaica and having our airline pick them up from Jamaica.
And bring them directly
yeah,
there.
Which Jamaica and the Virgin Islands are on the same parallel.
It's interesting that you've mentioned that because one of the debates I keep having with the Chinese is, yes, we want to come to the BVI, but we don't want to spend 30 hours traveling. We want to come to 2 points. We want to do 2 points. So, okay, it could be Jamaica, then BVI, or it could be, at the moment, I hadn't even realized that there was that Jamaica connection. Or because what they like is London or Paris, BVI. And yes, people are quick to say, well, you know, you're not going to fill a plane with people from France or the UK to come to the BVI, even with some Chinese. But I see it this way. I see if that were to happen, I see on to St. Martin for the French, or on to Antigua or St. Kitts for the British. So there are all kinds
of connections that could be made.
Could be made.
And we certainly need to be looking into those things.
China is where it is happening. China is exciting. You look at the wealth of the Chinese. Mr. Li Ka-shing, for example, is, in fact, I was looking at his biography. He is the 8th wealthiest man in the world. Li Ka-shing is, and he has everything. He's into everything. He's into real estate. He's into telecommunications. You name it, he's into it. And it's a pretty exciting place to be. That whole Asia Pacific region. You see what's happening with Switzerland. Switzerland, a lot of Swiss banks are moving from Switzerland to Singapore. So we need to be in the mix. We need to be in the mix.
You need to be in the mix.
Precisely.
We're going to take a break.
Okay.
For a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, I want to talk some about the financial services, attack on the financial services that we've had from some so-called investigative reporters.
Yes, ICIJ.
Yeah, and I call them so-called because it looks like a CIA operation to me. But
funny you saying that. I probably should stay away from commenting on that. But interesting, because I've heard that comment from other sources too.
Yeah. So I mean, I come from New York. I was in New York in the late '60s. Early 70s, during the waning years of the civil rights movement, and the Black Panther Party and that sort of thing. And we know of the counterintelligence programs of the CIA and the FBI. And this kind of mirrored, and we know America's desire to end or to collect more taxes from its citizens.
It wasn't an amateur job.
And
I would agree with that. It was not an amateur job.
It reeks with suspicion in my view.
Yes.
But anyhow, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we're going to talk about that attack and how we have mitigated some of those challenges and where we are now and perhaps how well we are faring considering all attempts that are being made to attack our financial services sector. Keep it locked right at the Spotlight. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm here with Mrs. Lana Smith. She's the interim director of the Hong Kong office, and we're talking about the goals of the Hong Kong office, why now, why we open up a Hong Kong office now, and of course, it's important for us, as you've heard, to maintain our market share in the financial services industry and increase that share, because 60% of every dollar we spend comes from financial services, and we need to get more money in the territories so that we could continue to provide the quality of services that we become accustomed to, and increase those services, the quality of those services as well. We've had a quote unquote investigative, I forgot the name of the
In
organization.
ICIJ, Investigative Consortium of, no, the International Consortium of
Investigative reporter, journalists.
Yes. ICIJ, yes.
And they talked about the Virgin Islands as a tax haven and having tax shelters as if we were doing something illegal. They talked about the Caymans. They conveniently left out Delaware and some of the European countries that also have financial services, like Guernsey and Channel Islands in Jersey. But they seem to be focusing primarily on the Virgin Islands and Caymans. We had to do some quote-unquote damage control. How was that done? How did we fare? Are we out of the woods? Are we making progress? I heard the Member of Parliament for Overseas Territories, Mr. Mark Simmons, stood shoulder to shoulder with the Premier and said that the British Virgin Islands was a leader in a standard setter, I think was his exact words.
That's a right word.
In transparency in the financial services, in well-regulated jurisdiction in the financial services sector. How are we faring in that?
Fingers crossed that that's the end of a very bad episode, very unfortunate episode. I think that the damage to the BVI, to the industry, I am being cautious that it was minimal. And it was partly because of the sterling reputation that the British Virgin Islands has. As you recognize and you've said before, the BVI is totally committed to transparency. We've signed 24 or 25 tax information exchange agreements, and we have another number that are pending, including, in fact, I was present, in fact, assisted the Ministry of Finance in negotiating recently one with Japan. So they're ongoing, so we'll soon have another one under our belt, so to speak. I think we have fared well. And as you said, there was some damage control needed. We worked very closely with the industry. There's no point in having crisis management team if it doesn't involve the industry, because the industry is what drives financial services. So we worked very closely with them. And as I said, I'm hoping that the worst is over. I keep hearing that there is another number of companies that will be released, but I think we'll wait and see what comes of that. I think we weathered the storm well. We did very well. The Premier went right into, just after that, this happened in April, May, mid-June, he went right into London, where Mr. David Cameron called a meeting of overseas territories, and there was a discussion that on the G8 agenda. And again, the BVI fared very well, because we are of one accord, as the Premier has said, in terms of the policies, or the 3 T's that Mr. Cameron espouses. The 3 T's, which are trade, transparency, and taxation. The BVI has only wants legitimate, good business. The BVI has proof, not just in terms of the tiers that have been signed. In fact, we not only signed tiers, we've been through the OECD process twice and have passed twice, as recently as last month. We've been assessed by the Financial Action Task Force, and we've done very well, the International Monetary Fund. So we have really, nothing to hide. We have, as I said, an excellent story to tell.
But the UK government under Mr. Cameron, Prime Minister Cameron, seemed to want to have a way in which to look into the business of the persons doing the businesses of the persons, the businesses that are registered here for particular type of information to see, for example, beneficial
owners. Yes,
owners.
He is,
and he wants that. How dangerous is that a situation for the financial services industry and for us in particular?
Well, I always say, and I say to people in Hong Kong, because one of the things I forgot to mention is that I have been interfacing with major media there, Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal and so on. I always say that people are entitled to their privacy, and that BVI is not a secrecy jurisdiction. We believe in confidentiality, and we believe in privacy. Yes, Mr. Cameron is promoting or advocating that there be beneficial ownership, that this be I don't want to say widely publicized, but that this be accessible to certain authorities. And what again, the government has been working in close consultation with the industry. And I believe where they're at now is they're reviewing the impact. Generally we may feel that it could be very disastrous, but the government is reviewing the impact of such development on the industry. So I couldn't go beyond that other than to say that, but the BVI standards are such that we adhere to all of the standards that are set by the Financial Action Task Force and all the international agencies.
But how different is the need to reveal beneficial ownership from commercial secrecy? I mean, commercial secrecy to me is one of the bedrocks of private ownership of the means of production of wealth, of capitalism. Capitalists don't go around broadcasting their ownership.
Exactly.
And the individuals or even government in some instances don't have the right to go into a person's private business dealings without legal causes.
Yes.
So
and
how different is commercial secrecy from this desire for benefit to no beneficial ownership?
There is the feeling, as the Premier himself said in this statement he made in June. Time goes so quickly you lose count. In June, he himself talked about the fact that countries like the BVI and offshore, including the Channel Islands, are seen as countries that encourage tax evasion. So I suppose that is the basis of their insisting that this information be made public, or what all these information be made. But again, it is important to say, and again, as the Premier said, it is important to say that where there is any evidence of wrongdoing, be it fraud, be it tax evasion, or whatever other illegal activity might be suspected, there is not only the tax information exchange agreements that provide under Section 5 for information to be supplied to the requesting country, but regulator to regulator. The Financial Services Commission, if there is evidence, the Financial Services Commission has channels where they would request this information from the information is held by the private sector or registered agents. who are themselves regulated by the Financial Services Commission. So if there is any evidence or suspicion, yes, we don't believe in fishing expeditions. But if there is reason to think that there is wrongdoing, then this information is readily...
There's a process in place.
There's a process.
There's a process in place.
Precisely. There is a process in place. So
Yeah,
there
but
is
you get the sense, though, you get the sense from all that's being said and done that the British, the UK and other international jurisdictions want that business for themselves. I mean, perhaps you can't. I don't want to put you in a ticklish position, but I mean.
I understand what you're saying.
Because Canada is one of those countries, for example, who have, for all intents and purposes, seem to not want to sign on to any of these agreements.
True.
Right? So, and Canada being an independent country and a country of power, the UK nor the US, who incidentally some US senators are against it as well, will not be able to force them to sign on to these agreements. But the BVI being a colony, and this is my own perception, I might be wrong because it's only a perception, but the BVI as a colony can be forced by the UK to sign on to these agreements.
Yeah, but they can
which would mean that if some jurisdictions are forced to sign on and others are not, it would seem to me then that would create a desire in the market to shift to those countries who are not signed on to the agreement.
This is precisely what, in fact, the Premier said again. I don't know if people have been listening to him, but one of the things he said to Mr. Cameron and to Mr. Simmons, one of the things he said is that what will happen if what you're creating is an unlevel playing field. So business will flow from well-regulated jurisdictions such as the British Virgin Islands to less well-regulated jurisdictions that I will not name.
Yes.
Yes. So we have to be very careful. And I think Mr. Cameron acknowledged that fact. So, but the reality is, Cromwell, that the world has changed. Yes, the goalposts keep shifting and so on, but the BVI has to be up to.
Yeah. We really navigate the minefields.
Exactly, yes. Navigate the minefields, and as a mutual friend of ours like to say, we need to be able to bob and weave.
Bob and weave, yes.
Bob and weave.
Yeah.
And I think we've done that quite well.
Yeah. We're going to take a break.
Sure.
And, we're going to come back. A lot of people have been talking about you. They've been talking about you as the Premier's wife. And been talking about you, all the money you're making.
Oh, my goodness. Could you give me some?
We're going to take a break for one from our sponsors.
Somebody's getting that money, not me.
You're going to tell us where the money's going.
I'll tell you.
Where it's coming from and where it's going, right? After these words from our sponsors, give it a lock right here in the Spotlight. We'll be right back.
Spotlight is brought to you by Virgin Island Motors, Tortola Concrete Limited, Bolo's High Tech Printery, and H. Lavity Stout Community College.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm having a very interesting conversation with Mrs. Lorna Smith, the Premier's wife, interim director of the Hong Kong office for financial services. Among many other hats she's been wearing over the many years that she's been a public servant here in the Virgin Islands. Those of you who know Mrs. Smith knows of her days way back when with Chief Minister H.L. Stout as a permanent secretary. Many. You have so many. You got closet full of hats.
I think so. I think I worked with more chief ministers perhaps than anybody else. I worked with a lot. The only one I didn't work with was the late Mr. Willard Wheatley. Where I worked with everybody. I worked with Mr. Romney. I worked with Mr. Stout. I worked with Mr. Ralph O'Neill. Every one of them. And that's just chief ministers. The ministers, other ministers I worked with too.
Yeah. So you have a good
40 years. You would have worked with a lot of people.
Yeah.
40 years of public service.
A good base of understanding of government.
Yes.
Yeah. And your role as a Premier's wife and at one point Chief Minister's wife.
Yes.
Some people might think that you shouldn't be so close to government, and you shouldn't be. It borders on nepotism, for example, that you're so involved and you get paid for. And I've heard about this $100,000 contract and so on. What's your views on your role, first of all, and getting paid for what you're doing?
Okay. Cromwell, we probably need a whole program for this one.
But
Because
we only
the
got
whole 5 minutes,
yeah.
10 minutes, okay. This whole nepotism thing is a difficult one. The BVI has 30,000 people. You use the best people that you have, right?
Yes.
I don't, and I am one of these people who don't believe in partisan thing. You use the best that you have. For instance, I believe I was asked to open the Hong Kong office, and let me say the only contract I have is one that started in May of this year, the 5th of May, when I traveled, and it comes to an end in September, on the 30th of September. That's the only contract I have. Let me make that very clear. But I believe I'm going to come back to that point too. I believe I was selected to open the Hong Kong office or to get it up and running because 10 years ago, I did the same thing in London.
In the London office.
In
That's
London.
right.
So,
Yes, yes.
in fact, even before that, Mr. O'Neill, he was then the chief minister. He asked me, or Bennett Smith and me, let's get it the grammar right. He asked Mr. Bennett Smith and me to go to London and find a building. So we picked that building, right? And then it was felt again. I mean, I was asked to get it up and running, which I did, very quickly. I was honored to do it. Again, interim. I spent a year and I was finished with it. This time, I was asked again for two reasons, I believe, because of my experience with the London office. Hong Kong is the kind of place where you can't have a steep learning curve. You have to be very fast. I think I was asked because of my experience with the London office, and secondly, because I knew Hong Kong. I knew the region. As I said, I'd been going there since 1989, purely because of that. In terms of this payment, I told you about the contract. What I have, what I believe people are referring to in terms of this other $100,000 contract. And again, let me say that I find it reprehensible because people know better and it's been explained already. And I really hope that this brings an end to it, that people are saying that I have a $100,000 contract. I have no such thing. What happened is because I advised government, or in fact, as I said, a couple of months ago, I negotiated the Japanese tax information exchange agreement with another lawyer who is in the Ministry of Finance. And by the way, I have not charged, nor have I collected a penny for it. I've been asked to attend because of my knowledge and experience. I've been asked to go to various OECD meetings. And that is a lot of preparation, very often negotiations, very often, the normal networking, in addition to the normal networking. And of that, this supposed $100,000 is merely a facility so that rather than my going to the Ministry of Finance and submitting a bill, every minute, well, I have to submit a bill anyway. But rather than it having to go through the motions, government
The long process.
The long process, not just the Auditor General gets involved, this person gets involved, the other person gets involved. There is a facility that could go for maybe 5 years. And so every time I do something, and I do a lot of work pro bono for government, many days, many nights, Cromwell, as you know, I'm working free for the government. When I do things like that, the South Africa thing, where I traveled and I did some negotiations for the government. Japan, as I said, I haven't done anything. I've collected $4,000. So I don't know what this $100,000 is. Dollars.
So there's money there for when you need to be consulted and you need to do some work. Then you could build them through that process, rather than go through a long process.
Exactly.
Okay. But it's not this ongoing.
There's no money. I haven't gotten any. I haven't gotten a penny more than that $4,000. Yes, I'm being paid as a permanent secretary for the 5 months, May, June, July, August, September. It's about 100,000, whatever it is, you're being paid as a PS for the Hong Kong assignment, and it is work. The Chinese, this isn't about me now, the Chinese work, I mentioned a man, Li Ka-shing. Li Ka-shing did not even finish college, and he's still the 8th richest. Never even went to he didn't finish high school, I should say. He's still the 8th richest man in the world. The Chinese work 18 hours. When you're in Hong Kong, you're working that kind of time. So you're working really hard. But be that as it may, I've always worked very hard. I mean, work is my hobby. So that thing is nonsense about, and I hope it's put to rest forever in terms of that.
What you see a role in, because we run, we found out at 3 o'clock.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we got about 7.
I told you we needed a whole.
Yeah, we got about 7 minutes to go. 6 minutes now. But as a premier's wife, what you see your role generally as?
I also wanted to talk about that, Cromwell, because a lot of people don't know. I'm not a person who blows my trumpet and goes about talking. But I do a lot of pro bono stuff. Rotary, we started up talking about. I've raised every year. It's my contacts that cause us in large measure to raise the kinds of money we raise in Rotary. I also have a I'm very keenly involved in the autism program. Maybe because it's touched me in a very personal fashion. I spend my own resources. I've raised money. In fact, a number of people here in the BVI have offered to assist with that autism program. I have gone to St. Thomas, met with Cecil de Jong, who's the governor's wife there, and whoever else. And so I'm keenly involved. You speak to Lorna Dawson, who is one of the most brilliant persons in special education. The first person she comes to outside of government when she needs assistance, because she knows I will go to, whether it's somebody I know or Rotary or whoever, and I will assist them. And I do this. It is coincidental that I'm in a way that I'm the premier's wife. As I said, I've been a public servant for 40 years.
Yes. So you, in your own right, you have the context.
Exactly, in my own right.
People can quickly, your influence with the premier. I mean, are you running the country? people who talk that nonsense, they don't know the premier. Yeah, well,
he doesn't shout. You will never hear him shout. You will never hear him utter a unkind or curse word. Yeah. But he makes up his own mind when he is good and ready. Yes, I talk. I like to talk. I talk to everybody, and I talk to him. But he makes up his own mind running the country. That's what they say. But that's just people who that's stupid politics. No, I am not. Yeah. Let's put it beyond doubt. Yeah. I am not, and now that I'm in Hong Kong, it makes it. But I'll be back in a few months. But I have no wish to. That tells us that the time is up.
Yeah. I got a text for you actually. It says,
you got one?
We thank her for her service to the BVI, and when the history is written, she will get a chapter in the modern day. Let me get this.
Oh my goodness, I am so moved.
Yeah. Tell Lana we thank her for her service to the BVI, and when the history is written, she will get a chapter in the modern day section. Ask her what's next after Hong Kong.
Good. I want to write.
You want to write? I
want to write 2 books. I want to write a book on public life, public service in small countries like the BVI, and I want to write a book about my life. I think I would want to go with the first one first because I want to make a few dollars from it.
Okay.
So that's next for me. That's what I would like to do next.
All right. Thank you very much for being
here. Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Oh, we did.
And I'm glad that you've clarified some things and you've shed some light on some very important aspects of the BVI's role in the world and the things that are important for us to remain sustainable. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me on your program. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And I hope that you come back as often as you can.
Oh, I would love to do that. Good. Thank you very much.
Sure. Next week, the spotlight will be on the Miss BVI 2013 contestants. And of course, Miss Charity Castro is going to be here as well. And she, of course, we've come to know and love her. And I think that we'll all agree that Charity Castro is one of our better, I don't know if that's a good thing to say, but certainly a Miss BVI that has really brought the office of the BVI, the Miss BVI pageant to another level. And certainly we'll be happy to see her and talk to her about her year's reign, and talk to the new contestants to see what kind of metal they are made from. Of course, Sean Rose is going to be here to discuss the stories making the news on JTV that week. So make sure you tune in, keep it locked right in to Spotlight. Spotlight is rebroadcast every Sunday afternoon at 2:30. You could also get Spotlight on demand on jtvlive.net. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your words of encouragement. Continue to send me suggestions, criticisms, and continue to email me at jtvspotlight@yahoo.com. I'm Edjuenka, reminding you that when the spotlight is on, you see the facts. Peace and blessings.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.